If only we lived at the level of fundamental particles, we wouldn't have this delusion of objectivity. We wouldn't be suffering under the delusion that it was possible to make objective statements about reality. Because we would know that every time we want to say anything about reality, every time we want to interrogate reality, any phenomenon within reality, we would have to do so by exchanging photons with whatever it is we're observing, and by doing so inevitably change the thing that we are observing. And of course, on top of that, there is such a thing as the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which is intrinsic to reality, and you'll know that you simply cannot make the claim that it is possible to make objective statements about the state of what things are like in reality. And yet, we live in a macroscopical world in which we can quite clearly and unambiguously state certain facts about the reality we observe about us, around us. So what's the difference there? What makes our level of reality different? The problem, or not the problem, the difference lies within the human mind, in fact, because it obviously cannot lie within reality itself. Reality simply is what it is, and it does what it does, and it couldn't care less about our difficulties in understanding what is really going on. The problem is in there, or rather in there, or in both of us. So let me explain by showing you a little example. Look at this. What am I holding up here? Now, you can look at this and you can tell me you're holding up a ball. Of course I'm holding up a ball. It's a little metal ball, like a ball bearing, that sort of thing. Or is it? Because let's look at this at a much closer level. And what do we see? We see atoms jostling about. Trillions of atoms jostling about. This ball is shiny. It is constantly exchanging photons with the rest of the world. There is no constancy in this. Electrons, because it's a little metal ball, electrons are flowing freely through this ball, constantly changing place, constantly changing their location, and interacting with the rest of the world, again, through the exchange of photons. That's why it gives it that metallic sheen. So this is not just a ball. This is a little physical system that is constantly changing. But of course, when we look at it, what we see is a ball. And if I drop this ball, it falls. And if I drop this ball again, it will fall again. And if I drop this ball 100,000 times, it will fall 100,000 times. We can make statements of fact about this ball. We can say it will fall, it will fall, it will accelerate while it is falling, and we can actually measure, we can actually quantify the amount of acceleration that this ball will undergo when it is falling. We can make statements about this little ball that are statements of fact, that we can take for granted, that we can rest assured will happen every time we interact with this ball. But the reason we can do so is because this ball is a concept in our mind that stands for a physical phenomenon that involves trillions of atoms, trillions of elementary particles doing a orchestrated little dance together, which has a certain constancy about it. which does not change over time, which is persistent from one moment in time to the next. It is this persistent pattern of interaction that we observe, this constant set of attributes that we observe in our macroscopic world that we group together and we call a ball, and that we can rest assured will persist over time and will behave in a predictable fashion. And that is what reality is like for us at a macroscopical level. We live in a reality that is to a large extent predictable, in the sense that the things that we observe happening at the levels that we can comprehend in our minds are consistent and predictable. And that is why we say that reality possesses laws of nature, because reality is predictable and is consistent in that sense. That is why we can state facts about this ball, even if the ball itself is a mental construct. The facts are undeniable. When I drop this ball again, it will fall.